While Arthur was on a ventilator, the attending nurses noticed tattoos on his arms that strikingly matched those of a fugitive, reportedly deceased in 2020. This discovery prompted them to contact local authorities. Upon further investigation, including a scar above the eyebrow and a fingerprint match, it became evident that Arthur was not who he claimed to be. In a saga that entangled multiple nations and captured the intrigue of countless onlookers, Nicholas Rossi, a man with a chameleon-like ability to shift identities, orchestrated a narrative so bewildering it seemed plucked from the pages of a gripping novel. Ostensibly a man of simple origins, Nicholas lived a life shrouded in layers of duplicity, leaving a trail of questions and legal entanglements across continents. From the quiet streets of Rhode Island to the bustling lanes of Glasgow, and under the guise of Arthur Knight, Nicholas wove an intricate tapestry of lives, each thread spun with meticulous care to conceal the true nature of his past. However, as the fabric of his created realities began to fray, what unfurled was a story of evasion, legal battles, and an elusive pursuit of truth that challenged the very notion of identity. Embark on this extraordinary journey through a life mired in mystery as we unravel the complex persona of Nicholas Rossi. Hold tight, for this tale traverses the murky waters of identity theft, international intrigue, and the relentless quest for justice in the face of profound deception. The life of Nicholas Rossi, before the whirlwind of allegations began to swirl, offers a fascinating, albeit perplexing, journey into a complex character whose existence seemed shrouded in layers of ambiguity. Born in an unassuming neighborhood, Rossi's early life was marked by the typical routines of childhood. However, beneath this veneer of normalcy, the seeds of an extraordinary life were being sown. His upbringing, though outwardly conventional, hinted at undercurrents of discontent and restlessness. Those who knew him described a young Rossi as a chameleon, able to adapt and blend into any social setting, yet always maintaining a hint of detachment. Born in Rhode Island, Nicholas had a challenging upbringing with an abusive and unemployed father. His mother, Diana, struggled to support the family as a waitress, and eventually left Nicholas's father, taking Nicholas and his siblings with her. After marrying David Rossi, who adopted Nicholas and his siblings, the family hoped for a fresh start. However, Nicholas's behavior became increasingly problematic, leading to psychiatric care and a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder and attention deficit disorder at a young age. Nicholas spent a fair amount of time in foster care. Additionally, his life was marked by a pattern of legal troubles, starting as early as his time in foster care. He was known for his litigation against various institutions, including lawsuits against the foster care system and the college that expelled him. His personal life was tumultuous, with multiple marriages ending in divorce and restraining orders. His education, punctuated by sporadic brilliance and unsettling inconsistency, was the first public display of his multifaceted persona. Teachers and classmates recalled a student who could be engagingly intelligent in one moment and disconcertingly aloof the next. As Rossi transitioned into adulthood, the complexity of his character deepened. His relationships with family members were fraught with contradictions. To his relatives, he was both a source of pride and a perpetual enigma. They cherished his successes, but were often left bewildered by his unpredictable behavior. Friends found themselves drawn to his charismatic presence, yet they also sensed an undercurrent of secrecy that kept them at arm's length. In professional settings, colleagues struggled to reconcile the Rossi they knew, articulate, ambitious, and seemingly transparent with the whispers of duplicity that seemed to follow him like a shadow. His career, a patchwork of achievements and unexplained departures, was as much a testament to his talents as it was a map of his restlessness. The workplaces he graced remembered him as much for his sudden absences as for his contributions. But it was the emergence of Rossi's multiple identities that marked the turning point in his narrative. With each new alias, he painted a fresh canvas, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. These alternate personas were not mere masks. They were intricate constructs, complete with their own histories, relationships, and worldviews. Through them, Rossi lived not just one life, but many, each as complex and confounding as the next. As the layers of Rossi's life are peeled back, what becomes increasingly clear is that his story is more than a mere chronicle of alleged crimes and cunning deceit. It is a reflection of the complexities of identity, the intricate dance between reality and perception, and the profound impact that one individual's life journey can have on the tapestry of countless others. In unraveling the enigma that is Nicholas Rossi, we are not just tracing the footsteps of a man, we are navigating the labyrinth of the human psyche. Nicholas Rossi becoming Arthur Knight. Arthur Knight claimed to be a man of Irish descent and an orphaned upbringing. Arthur, originally claiming to be born as Arthur Brown, changed his last name after marrying Miranda Knight. He stated that his decision to adopt his wife's surname stemmed from a desire to detach from a traumatic childhood and start anew. More on this a bit later. In December 2021, while living in Scotland, Arthur's life, filled with love and family contentment, took an unexpected turn during a hospitalization for COVID-related complications. The unraveling of Arthur Knight's, or rather Nicholas Rossi's, meticulously crafted world was as dramatic as his story. While hospitalized and in a setting far removed from the world of espionage and intrigue, the vigilant eyes of medical professionals tending to his illness uncovered the first cracks in his armor. Rossi's ability to evade capture and seamlessly navigate international complexities hinged on his strategic planning and execution. He had skillfully dodged the radar of law enforcement agencies, moving across borders with the ease of a seasoned traveler, leaving a trail so convoluted that even the most astute investigators found themselves at a crossroads. But in the sterile, fluorescent-lit corridors of the hospital, his carefully constructed narrative began to crumble. It was the keen observation of a nurse, a professional trained to notice the minutiae, that first cast doubt on the identity of the man known as Arthur Knight. The tattoos adorning Rossi's arms, intricate markings that he perhaps never imagined would become the key to his undoing, matched those of a fugitive whose story had been splashed across headlines. These indelible ink marks on his skin, intended perhaps as symbols of his journey or personal milestones, became the silent witnesses to his true identity. As word of this discovery reached the authorities, the hospital room transformed into the unlikely stage for the denouement of Rossi's elaborate act. The arrival of law enforcement, the careful comparison of fingerprints, and the undeniable match of the scar above his eyebrow turned the tide irrevocably against him. The pieces of the puzzle, scattered across continents and hidden behind layers of deception, began to coalesce, forming a clear picture of the man who had so skillfully eluded capture. On December 13, 2021, he was arrested at Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow, Scotland, for charges related to a 2008 case in Utah, among other accusations. Arthur was astounded by his arrest, insisting on his innocence and identity as Arthur Knight. He vehemently denied any connection to the U.S. or the charges against him, attributing his health issues as proof of his inability to be the person they were seeking. Despite his protests, the suspicion that Arthur Knight was indeed Nicholas Rossi, a wanted man from the U.S., grew stronger. The confirmation of his identity as Nicholas Rossi sent ripples through the communities he had infiltrated, painting a stark picture of a man whose life was a complex puzzle of deception, manipulation, and alleged criminal activity that stretched across multiple countries. The revelation unraveled a narrative so intricately woven that each thread seemed to lead to a new facade, a new alias, a new life lived under the shadow of duplicity. Nicholas Rossi, known to some as Arthur Knight, had mastered the art of disguise, not just in appearance, but in the very essence of his being. His journey from the American East Coast to the British Isles was not just a geographical shift, but a transformation of identity, meticulously orchestrated to evade the grasp of justice. In the United States, Rossi's past was marred by allegations of financial fraud, deception, and a trail of broken relationships that spoke volumes of his capacity to manipulate those around him. His life was a series of calculated moves, each step carefully planned to ensure his survival in the face of mounting legal pressures. The adoption of multiple identities was not merely a tactic for evasion, but a testament to his ingenuity in outmaneuvering law enforcement and the legal system. Across the Atlantic, in the quiet towns of England and the bustling streets of Scotland, Rossi continued his charade. As Arthur Knight, Nicholas Rossi meticulously crafted an alluring persona of a dignified gentleman with purported Irish heritage, delicately weaving himself into society's tapestry. His tale of orphanhood and struggle was a compelling narrative that resonated deeply, capturing the empathy and attention of those around him. Yet, beneath this well-constructed facade, the truth lurked like a shadow, a harbinger of the imminent collapse of his house of cards. In the face of overwhelming evidence, Rossi's protestations of innocence and claims of mistaken identity rang hollow. The Pandora's box of questions that his capture flung open led to a retrospective journey through his past, tracing the steps of a man whose life was a testament to the sheer audacity of human deception. Nicholas Rossi's story is not just a tale of a man on the run, it is a narrative that challenges the very notion of identity. In a world increasingly interconnected and digitally monitored, his ability to slip through the cracks of international law enforcement painted a disturbing picture of the vulnerabilities in the global justice system. It raised questions about the ease with which an individual could forge a new existence, leaving behind a trail of unresolved allegations and unanswered questions. As the investigation into his life continued, authorities began to unravel the complex network of relationships and transactions that had facilitated his life on the run. Financial records, personal testimonies, and digital footprints were pieced together like a jigsaw puzzle, each piece revealing a fragment of the truth. The picture that emerged was that of a man whose life was a balancing act on the tightrope of legality, a man whose every move was a calculated risk in the high-stakes game of evasion. The communities that had once welcomed Arthur Knight, the seemingly respectable man with a story of hardship and resilience, were left to grapple with the reality of his true identity. Nicholas Rossi's revelation was not just a moment of legal significance, it was a moment of profound introspection for those who had crossed his path. It was a reminder of the fragility of trust and the ease with which appearances could deceive. Rossi's efforts to avoid extradition had all been unsuccessful. He had recently stood before a court in Utah, facing charges for an alleged assault of a 21-year-old woman in 2008. Rossi was only pinpointed as a suspect roughly 10 years after the incident, a delay caused by a backlog of DNA test kits at the Utah State Crime Lab. During the court session, State Attorney Tamara Vasquez informed Judge Kimberly Hornak of Rossi's extradition and highlighted his failure to accurately disclose his name or date of birth. Rossi attempted to dismiss these claims as complete hearsay, but was promptly interrupted by the judge. In January 2022, Leavitt, the Utah prosecutor, expressed appreciation for the significant interagency collaboration of law enforcement to bring this suspect to justice, underscoring the collective effort involved. His presence in court, often in a wheelchair and donning an oxygen mask, contrasted with the assessment from a physician at the Edinburgh prison where he was detained, who reported that he had no particular health concerns. In the somber atmosphere of a 2022 bail hearing in Edinburgh, the courtroom became the stage for the clear revelation of his chameleon-like nature. The timeline of Rossi's life, as pieced together by the prosecution, revealed a series of calculated moves and strategic decisions, each meticulously designed to build upon his web of deceit. Nicholas Rossi also used the alias Nicholas Alaverdian in various contexts throughout his life. In Rhode Island, he was known as Alaverdian and was a respected child welfare advocate before he suddenly claimed to have terminal cancer, which was followed by news of his apparent death in 2020, complete with an obituary. The obituary claimed that Alaverdian's ashes were dispersed in the ocean. However, the origin of the obituary remained unspecified, and as per the court document, officers have not located any official death notification. Subsequently, after a span of 4 months, an email from an encrypted source, allegedly from the Alaverdian Foundation, reached the Rhode Island police. The message proclaimed Rossi's passing in Eastern Europe, as noted in the court documents, yet failed to offer any concrete details. The emails and the obituary were all written in a similar manner to previous written communications sent by Nicholas Rossi prior to his purported death, stated the 2020 court document. The prevailing consensus among the various states involved is that Nicholas Rossi is very much alive and orchestrated an attempt to feign his own death. Prior to his death, Alaverdian's life in Providence, Rhode Island, in 2017 involved legal conflicts, most notably, a restraining order filed against him by a friend. It was then that he left the United States and settled in South Bristol, England. This is when he married Miranda Knight. He told Miranda's family he was from Dublin, Ireland, and worked in online marketing and public relations. To the family of his unsuspecting bride, he presented himself as Nicholas Brown, an individual of Irish descent, complete with an accent that seemed as genuine as any native speaker's. This identity, carefully crafted and maintained, allowed him to integrate into a family, winning their trust and building relationships that were based on nothing but falsehoods. In 2021, he moved to Glasgow, Scotland, where he claimed to be a professor teaching at the University of Glasgow. However, it's important to note that claims like these, especially coming from individuals with a history of adopting multiple identities or being involved in legal controversies, often warrant verification and scrutiny. Institutions such as the University of Glasgow typically have strict hiring processes and criteria for academic positions, including thorough background checks and validations of qualifications. The claim of being affiliated with such a reputable institution as the University of Glasgow would likely be subject to validation by both the university and investigative authorities, especially in light of Rossi's complex and controversial background. Without official confirmation or evidence of such an appointment, Rossi's claim should be approached with caution and considered within the context of his known history of legal issues and identity changes. The unraveling of Rossi's complex alias and the myriad charges he faced in various regions were spotlighted during his extradition hearings and through investigative journalism. This exposed the labyrinth of deceit, including his numerous aliases and the extensive legal allegations he was entangled with across different jurisdictions. His story, marked by a blend of advocacy, deception, and legal drama, paints a portrait of a man whose life was as complex as the identities he crafted. The prosecutor told the court, "He appears today as Arthur Knight, but has previously been identified by medical professionals and civilians as Nicholas Rossi," only for Rossi to vehemently deny this from the dock, exclaiming, "That's not true." Rossi's legal representative in Scotland argued last year against his extradition to the US, labeling it a flagrant breach of his human rights. The request was denied. The upcoming hearing for Rossi in Utah is pending. Subscribe now to keep updated on the developments. Join the conversation. Drop a comment to share your thoughts and insights. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating content. Thanks for tuning in to Really Unreal. Join us next time as we uncover another fascinating case. Stay curious, stay connected, stay with Really Unreal.